You wake up and before your feet even touch the ground, you already feel drained. Your body lifts itself out of bed, but your mind is dragging heavy chains. The day hasn't even started, yet you feel like you've already lost the fight. You take a look around, the alarm is buzzing, your phone is flashing with emails and notifications, your to-do list is waiting for you like an impatient boss tapping its foot. From the outside, everything looks normal. But inside, something feels broken. And the question is, why? Why do you feel this exhaustion before life even gives you a chance to begin the day? This isn't just stress. It's not just being overworked, and it's not even the regular kind of burnout you fix with a weekend getaway or an extra cup of coffee. What you're feeling is deeper. It's not only about you, it's about the society you live in. You're not simply tired. You're sick, but not in the way you think. And you're not sick alone. The sickness is social, cultural, invisible, and it's everywhere. Think about it. We live in a world where suffering doesn't wear the old masks anymore. There are no prison bars holding you down, no factory boss screaming in your ear, no visible authority shouting orders. That was the world of your grandparents, maybe even your parents, the world of rules, prohibitions, restrictions. Sit down. Be quiet. Do as you're told. That was the age of discipline. But that age is gone. Today, we live under something far more subtle, far more dangerous. We live in a system that doesn't forbid you, it seduces you. It doesn't punish you with chains, it whispers in your ear. And the whisper says, you need to do more. You need to be more. You need to achieve more. Don't stop. Never stop. And here's the trap. Because no one is yelling at you, you think you're free. You believe you're the one choosing to push harder, to wake up earlier, to squeeze another project into your week. You believe you're being productive out of personal ambition. But take a closer look. You're not free. You're performing. You've become your own taskmaster. What used to be an order from the outside has become a voice inside your head. And the scary part is, you obey it without question. This is why you wake up already tired. Because you didn't just work yesterday, you've been working nonstop in your head. You've been calculating, planning, worrying, measuring yourself against standards that keep shifting just out of reach. You've been told all your life that every second must be useful, that every action must lead to results, that every breath has to take you closer to some goal. And now, even when your body rests, your mind is running laps. Even in your sleep, the whisper doesn't stop. Have you noticed how guilty you feel when you're not doing something? Have you caught yourself reaching for your phone every time there's a pause, just so you don't feel like you're wasting time? Have you felt that knot in your chest when you don't respond to a message fast enough, or when you fall behind on one of the countless goals you set for yourself? That guilt, that anxiety, that constant sense that you should be moving faster, that's not natural. That's not just modern life. That's the symptom of a system that's eating you alive. And here's the cruelest part. This system convinces you that the problem is you. That you're just not organized enough, not disciplined enough, not strong enough. You look at people on social media, smiling, working out, posting their achievements, and you think, what's wrong with me? Why can't I keep up? But what if the truth is that nothing is wrong with you? What if the truth is that you're reacting in the only human way to an inhuman pace? Think about the irony. The slogans we hear every day, believe in yourself, you can do anything, push harder, sound positive, motivating, even inspiring. But underneath them hides a darker message. If you're not succeeding, if you're not producing, if you're not constantly on the move, then you're worthless. Your value becomes tied to your output. Your identity becomes chained to your productivity. And if you stop, if you rest, if you dare to breathe without producing something, you feel like you disappear. This is why so many people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, people who have it all together, walk around with this silent emptiness inside. They've built careers, families, achievements, but when they're alone, when the noise quiets down, they feel hollow. Because somewhere along the way, they confused being alive with being productive. They forgot what it feels like to just exist without proving themselves. Let me ask you this: when was the last time you allowed yourself to stop without guilt? To take a walk without counting steps, to sit in silence without calling it meditation, to read a book without underlining it for self-improvement? When was the last time you felt you had nothing to prove, no one to impress, no goal to hit, and that it was okay? If you can't remember, you're not alone. That's the hidden illness of our time. We've been tricked into thinking that rest is wasted time, that quiet is laziness, that simply being is not enough. And this illness has a name: burnout. But not the kind that disappears after a few days off or a quick reset. This is existential burnout. It's the kind that seeps into your bones, that empties you out inside while you keep wearing the mask of "I'm fine" on the outside. It's the kind that leaves you smiling at coworkers while you're collapsing in silence. It's the kind that turns every achievement into a moving finish line, never letting you rest, never letting you arrive. So no, you're not weak. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're human in a system that rewards machines. And you are tired because you've been asked to live at a pace that no human being was built to sustain. That's the truth most people never hear. That's the truth you need to hold on to. You are not the problem. The problem is the invisible prison you've been living in, a prison built not with walls, but with expectations. A prison that tells you freedom means doing everything, when in reality, freedom might begin with learning how to stop. And if that sounds familiar, if that touches something deep in you, stay with me. Because this is just the beginning of the conversation. The first step is recognizing that what you're living is not normal. The second step is finding the courage to question it. And together, that's what we're going to do. If you look back at history, power used to be loud. It used to wear a uniform, carry a whistle, shout commands. Think about the image of the factory floor 100 years ago. A supervisor with a stopwatch barked orders while workers moved in rhythm to machines. Schools had strict rules, military drills, clear punishments for stepping out of line. That was the old model of discipline. Someone told you what you could not do, and you either obeyed or you paid the price. Michel Foucault, a French philosopher, called it the disciplinary society. You knew exactly who was in charge and exactly what would happen if you resisted. The rules were clear, the control was visible, and the oppressor was out there, not inside your own head. Fast forward to today. Where's that boss now? Who's standing over your shoulder shouting "work faster" or "do more"? For most of us, no one. There's no factory foreman in your living room, no drill sergeant at your cubicle. Instead, there's something much quieter and much more dangerous, the whisper in your mind that says, you could be doing more. You should be doing more. This is the new form of control. It doesn't forbid, it seduces. It doesn't command, it suggests. It doesn't say you can't. It says, you can. So why aren't you? And that difference changes everything. Because if no one's holding a whip, if no one's yelling, then the blame for not keeping up shifts completely onto you. You're no longer just an employee or a citizen. You've been turned into your own manager, your own brand, your own personal corporation. You're both the worker and the boss, the one demanding and the one delivering. And if you fail, there's no one to point to. The failure is yours, and only yours. Look around at everyday life and you'll see it. Your phone buzzes, not with orders, but with opportunities. Do more networking. Join this challenge. Buy this productivity app. Try this diet. Take that course. Nothing looks like oppression, but everything feels like pressure. It's dressed up as freedom, but it's obligation in disguise. The app doesn't tell you don't be lazy. It says you can be more efficient, healthier, smarter, richer. You just have to try harder. And who would dare argue with that? Who wants to be the one who says, I don't want to improve? So you accept the offer. You sign up for another tool, another challenge, another way to optimize. And piece by piece, you put the shackles on yourself. Even leisure isn't safe anymore. Think about how we talk about it. Reading? It better be personal development. Meditation? Only if it makes you calmer and sharper at work. Exercise? You track it, measure it, post it. Even sleep has been swallowed by performance culture. You've got to optimize your bedtime routine, monitor your REM cycles, buy gadgets to make sure you're recharging the right way. Rest has stopped being rest. It's just another task to perform better tomorrow. So let me ask you this. Have you ever sat down to watch a show, scroll a feed, or just take a nap, and immediately felt guilty? Have you ever thought, I should be doing something else, something useful? That's not laziness speaking. That's the voice of the new oppressor living in your head. You've become your own prison guard. The walls aren't physical, but they're real. They're made of expectations, deadlines, constant comparisons, and the endless drive to prove that you're never wasting time. This is the essence of the performance society, a term coined by the philosopher Byung-Chul Han. It's no longer about you can't. It's about you must. You must hustle, must grow, must outdo yourself every year, every month, every day. And it feels like freedom because no one's pointing a gun at you. But the truth is, you're still trapped. You've simply become the one enforcing the trap. Think about social media. Nobody forces you to post, yet you feel the need to keep up. Nobody makes you compare yourself, yet you scroll through highlight reels and measure your own life against them. Nobody demands you answer emails at midnight, but somehow you do, because you don't want to be the one who dropped the ball. Nobody locks the door to your office at 6 p.m., but you stay late, because you can't shake the idea that just one more task will make the difference. And if you burn out? If you collapse? You tell yourself, it's my fault. I should have managed my time better. See how twisted that is? The system steps back, washes its hands, and leaves you to punish yourself. That's why this new form of oppression is so effective. It hides in plain sight. It feels voluntary, even empowering. You think you're building your future, chasing your dreams, living with passion. But what's really happening is that you're running an endless marathon with no finish line. And every time you slow down, the voice inside pushes you harder. You can't win, because the rules keep changing. You can never arrive, because there's always more to do, more to improve, more to become. It's a trap disguised as opportunity. The tragedy is that we've learned to accept this as normal. We tell ourselves, this is just life. Everyone's hustling. Everyone's exhausted. That's just how it is. But what if it's not? What if the truth is that you've been tricked into fighting a battle you can't win? What if all the exhaustion, the guilt, the constant self-criticism aren't signs that you're failing, but signs that the game itself is rigged? You see, the old world of discipline had clear enemies. The boss, the rules, the police, the teacher. You could rebel against them, resist them, blame them. But in this new world, the enemy is inside. You carry it in your pocket, in your calendar, in your own thoughts. And that makes it harder to fight, because how do you resist yourself? How do you rebel when the one cracking the whip is also the one holding the whip? This is why so many people feel like they're on the edge of collapse yet still blame themselves for not being strong enough. They don't see that strength isn't the issue. The issue is that they're trapped in a system designed to keep them running forever. And unless you recognize that, you'll keep waking up tired, keep filling your schedule, keep performing until you forget what it means to simply live. So let's pause here. The problem is no longer the loud commands of authority. The problem is the quiet whisper inside, telling you to never stop. And until you see that whisper for what it is, not freedom, not motivation, but control, you'll never break free. The truth is uncomfortable, but it's also liberating. You've been set up to oppress yourself. And the moment you recognize that, you start to reclaim your power. Think about the kind of slogans you hear every day. Be your best self. Hustle harder. You can do anything if you just want it bad enough. At first, it sounds encouraging. Who doesn't want to believe in themselves? Who doesn't want to be motivated and inspired? But let me ask you something. How do you actually feel when you hear those words? Do they really give you energy, or do they make you feel guilty that you're not doing enough already? This is where the trap of modern life shows itself. We're no longer oppressed by commands like don't or you can't. Instead, we're drowned in endless affirmations that sound positive but work like chains. Yes, you can has replaced no, you can't, and at first glance, it feels like freedom. But in practice, it becomes pressure. If you can do anything, then every failure is automatically your fault. Every unfinished project, every missed opportunity, every moment of rest becomes a sign that you're weak, lazy, or falling behind. And that is not motivation, that is violence disguised as encouragement. Let's make this concrete. Take exercise, for example. Working out is good for your health, but in today's culture it's not enough to just go for a jog. Now you have to track your steps, count your calories, post your results online, compare your times with others. Even your rest day becomes a metric, something to justify. Think about sleep. What used to be simple, you lay down, you wake up, has turned into a science experiment. You've got apps measuring REM cycles, blue light glasses, elaborate nighttime routines. Sleep is no longer rest. It's sleep performance. And if you wake up groggy, you blame yourself for not optimizing well enough. Do you see the madness here? Nothing is allowed to simply be what it is. Everything is turned into a project, a task, a responsibility. And if you don't hit the benchmark, the voice inside says, that's on you. Even joy has been hijacked. Reading a book? Better make it self-improvement. Taking a walk? Track those steps. Going on vacation? You'd better get amazing photos for Instagram, otherwise what was the point? Leisure has become labor. Fun has turned into content. And relaxation has been reduced to a strategy for recharging so you can produce more tomorrow. Rest isn't rest anymore, it's maintenance for the machine. That's what Byung-Chul Han means when he talks about the violence of positivity. It's not a slap in the face. It's not a visible enemy. It's a seductive whisper that never stops telling you, do more, improve more, smile more, grind more. And what happens when you inevitably can't keep up? You don't blame the system, you blame yourself. You start to think, I'm just not disciplined enough. I need to try harder. I need to fix myself. But you're not broken. The culture is broken. The violence isn't coming from your lack of effort. It's coming from the unrealistic demand that you should be limitless. And here's the cruelest twist. When positivity becomes an obligation, you're not even allowed to admit that you're tired. Feeling down? That's not acceptable. You're supposed to be grateful. Feeling unmotivated? You must be doing something wrong. Buy another course, read another self-help book, hire another coach. In this world, sadness, slowness, and even boredom are treated like diseases. But they're not diseases. They're part of being human. They're signals that you need to slow down, take stock, breathe. Yet the system tells you to push those feelings away and put on the mask. Smile, hustle, perform. This is why burnout is not just about long hours at work. It's about the suffocating demand to always be on, even in your free time. It's about the guilt that creeps in when you're not moving fast enough. It's about the way positivity itself has turned toxic. And let's be clear, this isn't just an individual problem. It's a cultural epidemic. The skyrocketing rates of anxiety, depression, and burnout aren't random. They're not a few weak people failing to cope. They are symptoms of a society that has weaponized optimism. The treadmill never stops, and the speed keeps increasing, and the cruelest part is that we're told we're the ones who chose to get on it. So I want you to pause and ask yourself, when you feel that constant pressure to optimize, who are you really doing it for? Is it truly for you? Or is it because you don't want to feel worthless in a culture that equates human value with productivity? When was the last time you did something without trying to prove anything to anyone, including yourself? When was the last time you allowed yourself to just be without calling it a habit, a goal, or a routine? The violence of positivity is powerful because it's invisible. It looks like freedom, but it's a prison. It looks like motivation, but it's a whip. It keeps you running, smiling, posting, producing, until you can't tell anymore whether you're living or just performing life. And that's why so many of us feel exhausted even when everything looks fine on the outside. That's why people who have it all, the job, the house, the family, secretly feel hollow inside. Because they're stuck in a cycle where nothing is ever enough. The truth is, you're not weak if you can't keep up. You're not failing if you feel tired. You're not broken if you don't always want to be positive. You're human. And being human means having limits. It means needing rest, needing space, needing time to stop and breathe without guilt. The culture of endless positivity wants you to forget that, because once you accept your limits, you can't be exploited as easily. But limits are not the enemy. Limits are what make life real. They're what allow you to feel, to slow down, to be present. And the moment you stop apologizing for them is the moment you begin to break free. So here's the challenge for you. The next time that whisper in your head says, do more, be more, achieve more, I want you to ask yourself, why? For whom? And if the answer is just pressure, guilt, or fear of falling behind, give yourself permission to step off the treadmill. That single act of refusal may be the most radical, the most liberating, and the most human thing you can do. Let's talk about what happens when the hustle stops being a season of life and turns into your entire identity. Somewhere along the way, we stopped being people and started being projects. You're not just John or Sarah anymore, you're a personal brand. You're an entrepreneur of yourself. You're an ongoing investment portfolio measured not by joy, not by presence, but by output. And the truth is, that shift has cost us something huge, our very sense of who we are. Think about the way we talk about life today. Everything is framed as a business term. Your network is your social capital. Your downtime is recharging. Even parenting has been turned into a competitive arena of strategies and hacks. We've absorbed the language of productivity so deeply that we don't even notice it anymore. You're not living a life, you're managing an operation. And the CEO, the employee, and the auditor are all the same person, you. At first, it feels empowering. You think, I'm in charge. I'm building something out of myself. But let me ask you this, how does it feel deep down when every single thing you do has to be justified? When every hobby has to pay off, every skill has to be marketable, every experience has to be leveraged? Do you notice how it quietly eats away at your joy? Because suddenly, nothing is allowed to be just for you. Nothing is free. Everything has to prove its worth. Take relationships, for example. Once upon a time, friendship was about connection, laughter, shared experiences. Now, in the hustle culture, networking has quietly replaced genuine human bonding. How often do people think of relationships in terms of contacts and opportunities rather than loyalty and love? That's what happens when we treat life like an endless LinkedIn profile. We stop asking, who do I trust, and start asking, who can help me move forward? And when you reduce people to stepping stones, you reduce yourself too. Or look at the body. Once it was simply your vessel, your way of living in the world. Now, it's treated like a machine to be optimized, polished, displayed. Workouts aren't just workouts, they're data sets. Meals aren't meals, they're fuel strategies. Sleep isn't rest, it's performance enhancement. You're not caring for yourself because you're alive and deserve it. You're managing your body as if it's a product that constantly needs to impress investors. But here's the question, who are those investors? Who are you performing for? And when did you agree to turn your humanity into a business? This is why so many people hit midlife with a sense of emptiness. It's not because they didn't work hard enough. It's because they worked so hard they forgot who they were outside of work. They've built resumes, portfolios, achievements, but when you strip away the titles and the metrics, there's this uncomfortable silence. And in that silence comes the realization, I don't really know myself anymore. I only know the version of me I've been marketing. You see, the hustle has a way of erasing your true voice. Because when everything is about optimization, you stop listening to what you actually want. You don't ask, do I enjoy this? You ask, will this get me ahead? You don't ask, does this give me peace? You ask, does this make me competitive? And little by little, your authentic desires, your true passions, get buried under layers of productivity. You stop living for yourself and start living as a performance for others. And eventually, you lose sight of where the system ends and where you begin. Have you ever noticed how, even when you accomplish something big, the celebration doesn't last? You hit the promotion, the new income bracket, the weight loss goal, and for maybe 2 days you feel amazing. But almost immediately, the question comes, what's next? What's the next upgrade, the next hustle, the next project? That's the trap. You can never win because the game has no finish line. And when you live in a race without a finish line, exhaustion isn't a possibility, it's a guarantee. This is why so many of us walk around feeling like we're constantly behind, even when we're doing more than ever. We're not behind because we're weak. We're behind because the rules are designed that way. Hustle culture thrives on keeping you forever chasing, forever unsatisfied. And the cruel part is, you mistake that dissatisfaction for personal failure. You think, I'm not good enough. But the truth is, the system is built to make you feel that way. Because as long as you feel incomplete, you'll keep hustling, keep buying, keep producing. So here's the heart of it. The biggest loss isn't missing a deadline or failing to hit a goal. The biggest loss is losing yourself. Losing your ability to simply exist without a reason. Losing your right to do something just because you enjoy it. Losing your connection to who you are beneath the job title, beneath the output, beneath the mask. And if you don't stop to face that loss, you'll wake up one day surrounded by achievements that feel like they belong to a stranger. I want you to ask yourself, what have you set aside while you were chasing the next milestone? What passions did you bury because they didn't seem useful? What parts of you got silenced because they didn't fit the image of productivity? Somewhere inside, there's still a version of you that remembers what it felt like to just live, to laugh, to rest, to create, to waste time without guilt. That version of you is not gone. It's waiting. But you have to be willing to stop performing long enough to hear it again. So let me say this clearly, you are not a company. You are not a brand. You are not a never-ending self-improvement project. You are a human being. And until you reclaim that humanity, the hustle will keep stealing your life one optimized day at a time. Let's be honest, most of us are terrified of silence. Think about it. The moment things get quiet, what do? We reach for the phone, we turn on the TV, we scroll, we refresh, we fill the space with noise. We treat boredom like it's poison, as if having nothing to do for 5 minutes is dangerous. But here's the paradox: boredom, silence, emptiness, they're not the enemy. They might be the very medicine we've been missing. Byung-Chul Han points out something powerful. In the past, boredom was the soil where creativity and reflection grew. When people had nothing to do, they thought, they created, they dreamed. Philosophers wrote their deepest ideas not between Zoom meetings but in long hours of solitude. Artists painted not because they were hitting a deadline, but because they sat with stillness long enough for inspiration to rise. Even spirituality, prayer, meditation, contemplation, was born in silence, in waiting, in the willingness to sit with nothing but yourself. That kind of boredom wasn't wasted time. It was fertile ground. It was a portal. Now think about the way we live today. Every second is fragmented. You're watching Netflix while checking texts while thinking about tomorrow's meeting. You're at your kid's soccer game but your mind is still stuck on an email. You're cooking dinner with a podcast in the background, notifications pinging, half your brain somewhere else. We live in a constant state of divided attention, like animals on high alert, scanning for the next piece of stimulation. And the result? We've lost depth. We've lost presence. We've lost the ability to actually inhabit our own lives. Have you ever noticed how tired you feel even after a full night's sleep? How anxious you feel even when nothing urgent is happening? How disconnected you feel even in a crowded room? That's not random. That's the cost of constant stimulation. Your nervous system is wired to rest, to reset, to breathe. But when you never stop feeding it noise, you rob yourself of the very thing you need most: stillness. Silence isn't empty, it's restorative. Boredom isn't a problem, it's a doorway. But we've been trained to treat them as threats. Here's the uncomfortable truth: most of us are afraid of boredom because it forces us to face ourselves. In silence, you hear the thoughts you've been running from. In stillness, you feel the wounds you've been numbing. In boredom, you come face to face with the parts of you that don't perform, don't impress, don't post well on social media. And that's scary, because we've been conditioned to measure our worth only by what we produce. But what if the very thing you're avoiding, silence, emptiness, boredom, is the only place where you can finally reconnect with who you are beyond performance? Think about children. When kids get bored, what happens? They start imagining. They invent games, build worlds out of nothing, draw, sing, dance. Boredom sparks creativity because it forces the mind to wander, to dream. But as adults, we've forgotten that skill. We see boredom not as a spark but as a failure. We rush to eliminate it with endless scrolling, endless consumption, endless doing. And by doing that, we starve ourselves of the very space where joy, creativity, and self-awareness are born. I want you to remember this: silence is not weakness. Boredom is not laziness. Slowness is not failure. They are acts of resistance in a world that wants you constantly running. They are your doorway back to humanity. Because when you stop filling every gap with noise, something incredible happens. The anxiety starts to loosen. The guilt begins to fade. And in that empty space, you rediscover a voice you thought you lost, your own. But let's not sugarcoat it. This isn't easy. The first time you allow yourself to sit with nothing, it's uncomfortable. Your body fidgets, your brain screams, do something. That's withdrawal. That's the system inside you panicking because it knows it's losing control. But if you stay with it, if you resist the urge to pick up the phone, to check the inbox, to fill the silence, you'll begin to notice something shift. The emptiness becomes less frightening. The boredom begins to feel fertile. The silence starts to feel like home. And that's where real freedom begins. Not in being able to do more, but in daring to do less. Not in endless stimulation, but in the courage to be still. Not in always performing, but in learning to simply exist. The forgotten power of boredom is that it reconnects you with the present moment, with the part of you that doesn't need to prove anything, doesn't need to achieve anything, doesn't need to optimize a single thing. It's the part of you that just is. And that's enough. So here's my challenge to you. The next time you feel that itch to fill the silence, don't. Let yourself be bored. Let yourself sit in stillness. Don't call it meditation, don't call it productivity, don't even try to make it meaningful. Just let it be. Walk without headphones. Drive without a podcast. Sit without scrolling. At first, it'll feel unbearable. But then, if you stick with it, you'll start to feel something else: relief. Relief that you don't always have to be on. Relief that you can step off the treadmill. Relief that life is not a checklist to complete, but an experience to inhabit. You were not born to be a cog in a machine. You were born to feel, to breathe, to love, to create. And the way back to that truth isn't through another app, another strategy, another hustle. It's through silence. It's through boredom. It's through the radical act of doing nothing and realizing that in that nothing, you are already enough. All your life you've been told that freedom means the ability to do more. More choices, more opportunities, more achievements. You've been told that the goal is to reach a place where you can say yes to everything, yes to travel, yes to work, yes to self-improvement, yes to growth. And at first, that sounds like the dream. But here's the twist: the ability to always say yes has become another form of slavery. Because when yes becomes automatic, when yes becomes the rule, then you are no longer free. You're just trapped in a prettier cage. The philosopher Byung-Chul Han challenges us with something radical. He says that true freedom doesn't begin with yes. It begins with no. Think about that. Real power is not the ability to add one more thing to your plate, it's the ability to set the plate down. It's the ability to refuse, to pause, to choose not to participate in the madness of endless productivity. Because sometimes the most revolutionary act in a world addicted to doing is simply not doing. And this is where courage comes in. Because saying no is not easy. Everything in our culture is designed to make you feel guilty for resting, ashamed for slowing down, weak for admitting limits. You're told to always be reachable, always be improving, always be available. So when you dare to push back, when you dare to say, no, I'm not going to answer that email right now, or no, I don't need to join another project, it feels like rebellion. And you know what? It is. In a society that worships constant hustle, refusing to play the game is an act of resistance. Let's be honest, most of us don't say no because we're afraid. Afraid of being left behind. Afraid of disappointing others. Afraid of being judged as lazy, unambitious, or selfish. But here's the question you need to ask: what is the cost of always saying yes? What is the cost of never stopping? You already know the answer. The cost is your health. The cost is your peace of mind. The cost is the slow erosion of your soul until you don't even recognize yourself anymore. That's not freedom. That's slow motion self-destruction. But when you start to see no not as failure but as liberation, everything changes. Anxiety begins to loosen its grip. Guilt begins to dissolve. The constant noise begins to quiet down. You start to realize that the world doesn't collapse when you step back. In fact, it's the opposite. You collapse when you don't step back. You burn out, you break down, you lose the very energy that made you capable in the first place. Saying no is not selfish, it's survival. And more than that, it's strength. Think about it. Anyone can chase endlessly. Anyone can get lost in the cycle of overwork. That doesn't take courage, that just takes momentum. Real courage is stopping when everything around you tells you to keep going. Real courage is facing the void of not doing, not achieving, not proving, and saying, I'm okay right here. Because in that void, in that pause, you meet yourself again. You remember that you are not your job title, not your follower count, not your productivity stats. You are a human being, and that is enough. So let me ask you, what would your life look like if you gave yourself permission to say no? What would change if you stopped treating rest like a crime? What if you dared to believe that your worth doesn't come from your output, but from your existence? Imagine the peace of waking up and not feeling like you're already behind. Imagine the freedom of sitting in silence without guilt. Imagine reclaiming your life not by adding more to it, but by stripping away what never belonged there in the first place. This is the deepest truth I want you to carry with you. Burnout is not your personal weakness. It's not proof that you're inadequate. It's not a flaw to fix. Burnout is a scream from your soul, a signal that the system you've been forced to live in is broken. It's your body and mind saying, enough. And that cry should not be ignored. Because if you listen, if you honor it, it will lead you back to something real, something whole, something that can't be measured by performance metrics. The courage to say no is the beginning of a new kind of freedom. A freedom not based on how much you can produce, but on how deeply you can live. A freedom that doesn't demand endless achievement, but allows presence, joy, and rest. A freedom where you no longer have to chase yourself, because you finally realize you were never behind. You were already here. So here's the challenge I'll leave you with. The next time the world tells you to do more, be more, push harder, I want you to pause. Take a deep breath. And ask yourself, do I want this? Or am I just afraid to say no? And if the honest answer is fear, then dare to say no anyway. Dare to rest. Dare to stop. Dare to simply exist. Because that act of refusal may be the bravest, most revolutionary thing you ever do. You are not failing because you are tired. You are tired because you've been asked to live in a way that no human should. And the moment you say no to that lie is the moment you reclaim your life. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this journey. I know your time is valuable. If this message spoke to you, if it gave you even one moment of clarity or peace, I'd be grateful if you'd let me know. A simple like, a comment with your thoughts, or subscribing to the channel helps this community grow, and it helps more people who might need these words to find them. Share your reflections below. I do read them. I'll see you in the next chapter. Until then, take care of your peace.